Since the year of 2021, for the country of Afghanistan, should we say, the fate of the country has been completely changed since America changed its foreign policy and decided to put the troops out of the country. Now, needless to say that at this moment, when we look at the nation of Afghanistan, politically speaking, it's rather unstable, and culturally speaking, and has been taken away so much since the Taliban took over. Now, here's something that you might not know. Since August of 2021, and guess what? The people in the country of Afghanistan started to flee away from the country. And guess what? Pakistan is one of the ideal places. At this moment, here's the question we need to ask. How about their lives in Pakistan as the refugees from Afghanistan? Well, according to report, should we say to be specifically, according to United Nations Higher Commission of Refugees, estimated that Pakistan currently hosts 3.7 million African refugees, and 7,000 of whom fled Afghanistan after the Taliban take over in August 2021. However, but at this moment, for the country of Pakistan is also facing, regarding the refugees from Afghanistan, a number says 1.73 million are deemed to be in Pakistan today illegally. What do we understand at this moment regarding the relationship between Taliban and Pakistan at this moment? And some say that from the humanitarian perspective, the country of Pakistan is not treating the refugees in a nice way. Is really the case? And again, how should we understand the situation? And why do we believe that Pakistan can actually do better than what a report has said? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to invite our distinguished speaker, who is Dr. Shoaib Kahut. And Dr. Kahut is a postdoc scholar at Shandong University in China, and his research interests include Belt and Road Initiative and energy economics. And he has carried out extensive research on Chinese investment across the globe. Well, Dr. Kahut, and welcome back to The Missing Piece.
My pleasure, Mr. Will. My pleasure.
Well, Dr. Kahut, I want to get to the question right away. As we mentioned before, since August of 2021, the fate of the country, Afghanistan, has been completely changed. Now, you and we had several discussions regarding this. But again, the number, it's rather alarming today. It's 3.7 million Afghan refugees are currently living in Pakistan. But the report says this country is about to escort them out because more than 700,000 are considered as illegal in this country. How should we understand the number, and what is the current relationship between the Taliban and Pakistan at this moment?
Yeah, Pakistan and Afghanistan mutual relationship, they have had a very checkered history. Ever since the Russia invaded Afghanistan in 1979. So since Pakistan shares a very long land border with the country of Afghanistan, so there was a huge influx of migrants, or you can say, families, kids, women, you name it. They just came to Pakistan. So, and their numbers were always, they were always in millions. And well, by the way, these are the numbers which are well documented by the UNHCR, which is the United Nations High Commission on Refugees. But those people who came here, illegally or without any, documentation, those numbers are, if you add them here in the formal numbers, so maybe the number goes more than 7 million. So for the country like Pakistan, which itself is a country of 240 million, these number of people, this number is quite high. And the second time we saw the migration from Afghanistan to Pakistan was when in 2001, when the US invaded Afghanistan. So ever since, as I grew up in Pakistan, so I saw the Afghan people, literally every city in Pakistan, every place, every town, you know. So they were there, and they were hosted very well by Pakistan. They had all the rights. Maybe it will be a new for your viewers. They could buy land, they could buy, you know, a property, they could buy immovable property, they could buy movable property, you know. So they just they were there in Pakistan for more than, as you say, for more than 4 decades. So they were the part and parcel of the Pakistani social, ethos, the Pakistani society. So yeah, that is the history of Afghan migration to Pakistan. Yeah.
Now, Dr. Kahut, why do you think that today, from, as we mentioned before, from the United Nations perspective and also from humanitarian perspective, that those refugees fled from Afghanistan and moved to Pakistan? They were looking for opportunities and they were looking for safe havens, and so to speak. But right now, what is actually the policy that the government of Pakistan roll out and started to crack down on those what we called illegal refugees? I mean, again, given the fact that before they came into the country of Pakistan, the nation should know better that these people were the refugees. And because of the political distortion and because of the political, what we say, unprecedented turmoil. So that's why they had to leave the country. Now, from a humanitarian perspective, what is the policy that is so controversial and decided to label them or to see them as illegal refugees at this moment?
Yeah, you see that the Afghanistan-Pakistan border is one of the most porous border of all over the world. So it is just 10 years ago or 8 years ago that Pakistan has barricaded that border. It has sealed its side of the border with with much concrete and with all the international standards border. So it is the first time in the history of Pakistan and Afghanistan that border, which is called Durand Line, has been sealed. Before that, that border used to be open. Can you imagine the border in Asia or in South Asia, and they were just open, just like there is no border between European countries. So in those times, the Afghanistan refugees people, they could easily sneak into Pakistani land. So that's why so many criminal elements they also managed to come in, and unfortunately they had no registration with the Pakistani authorities. So due to that factor, it created a lot of problems for Pakistani law and enforcement agencies. And so due to that fact, when that problem occurred, so then Pakistani government, it decided to crack down on such elements. So when they started crack down in some cities, then they came to know that they are in huge numbers which are not actually documented. So now the current operation is against the illegal immigrants, whether they are Afghanis, whether they are of any nationalities. So if they have their well documents and they have their papers and they are very well registered with the United Nations Commission on the Refugees, which is UNHCR, then they have no issue. They can stay there as per their time limit. But those elements, those people who doesn't have their registrations, or so they are called illegal immigrants technically in law jargons. So now they were first given the time limit, the deadline of 1st of November. And now as the time limit has passed, the deadline is over. So now there's a countrywide operation against them, because as I told you earlier in the earlier part of conversation, that Afghanis has become the part and parcel of whole society in Pakistan. They're everywhere, and they're there since more than 40 years. So now you can imagine then they have their properties, they have their businesses, They have their families. The children were born there. Now they grew up, they married. Now they have their children. So it's a very complex issue, but very complex issue. Yes. But as this issue has a very far consequences for the Pakistani society itself. So that's why this time the law enforcement agencies and the government of Pakistan together, they decided to, just send them back to their own country, because now the war is over in Afghanistan.
Dr. Kahut, let me ask the question from domestic security perspective. I mean, again, Pakistan is not the only country today that are facing the issue with illegal immigrants, or what we call illegal refugees, even though those two are two completely separate topics. And other countries propose or suggested the idea that provide a pathway for citizenship. So in other words, instead of making them illegal, why not provide a mechanism for them to become legally living in this country? But meanwhile, opponents believe that because of the cultural differences and because of the whole history, this political engagement, potentially speaking, that we could see a threat to the domestic security. Now, how much do you think that having those illegal refugees in Pakistan can actually pose a major threat to the nation of Pakistan? I mean, again, nobody wants to have a ticking bomb in the country, but we know that it could happen anywhere. It could happen anytime. So how much do you think that was one of the major factors that for Pakistan to roll out the policy to terminate those illegal refugees or illegal immigrants and send them back to Afghanistan? What is your explanation for that?
Yeah. So as you said in your question, the domestic security perspective is one of the factors. The other factor is most of the Afghanis, they had established their businesses all across Pakistan. Unfortunately, as they themselves were not registered, their businesses were also not registered. So they were not paying any taxes. So although state of Pakistan hosted them for good 4 decades, but they themselves were living a life in most of the cases which were far better than the ordinary Pakistanis. So this was one of the factors. The tax evasion, the undocumentation, the domestic security perspective. And then one of the other factors was that, Pakistan itself is a country of 240 million. And population growth rate of Pakistan is one of the fastest growth rate in all over the world. So this thing was also very, not very ideal for the society like Pakistan, whose itself population growth rate is a lot. Then how can it afford to have the refugees in millions? And by the way, the population growth rate of Afghanistan is greater than that of Pakistan, right? So we have witnessed in Pakistan the Afghan refugees. On average, every family used to have like more than 5 babies. So their population was growing up, exponentially. So these things were the elements of concern for Pakistan. And by the way, Pakistan was expecting that when the war will be over, first it was the Russian war, secondly it was the American war, or the NATO or the allies or the American allies war, or you can say, as they say, as war on terror, right? So Pakistan was expecting that when that war is over, these migrants will go, but unfortunately, no, they refused. They refused to go because we have already seen that when America was having its overnight withdrawal from Afghanistan, we have seen the very disturbing footages that Afghan people are running away from their country. Sticking with the airplanes, by hook or by crook, they want to flee away from their own country when the war is over. So it speaks volume about their own priorities. So Pakistan was expecting, as I said earlier, that they will go back, but unfortunately they are not ready to go back. So the only way to send them home is by force. Is by regulation, is by some law. So yeah, they have been now sent back in huge numbers. It's the first time in the history of Pakistan that in that huge number, Afghanis are going back to their own country. Before, in two episodes, in 1971 and then 2001, we have seen that Afghanis were coming into Pakistan in these huge numbers. So now the order has been reversed, and I hope that it will be a better decision for both the countries.
Well, but again, Dr. Kahut, from the humanitarian perspective, one may argue that we know, as we mentioned in the intro, the nation of Afghanistan, politically speaking and also socially speaking, it's being governed by the Taliban. I mean, again, if you don't know anything about the Taliban, one thing we should know is there's no democracy and there's no freedom in this country whatsoever. So, if I can put in this metaphorical way, is by sending those refugees back to Afghanistan, don't you think that we're actually sending the sheep back to the den of the lions? So, in other words, I understand that Pakistan to say, hey, listen, your time is up. You know, policy is policy, rules are rules. But why can't the government provide a leeway, or why can't the government figure out alternative options for the refugees? So in other words, instead of sending them back to the country where they might not able to survive, why not provide a better option, or why not start talking to other neighboring countries to again continue to provide the path or provide stability for the refugees? What do you think of that, Dr. Kahut?
First of all, on a humanitarian basis, Pakistan has always been applauded by United Nations, by all over the world, the international bodies, that Pakistan is one of the best hosts when it comes to host a neighbor country which was in distress because of the war. So that war was not imposed on Afghanistan by Pakistan. Unfortunately, that war was imposed by then superpowers of the world. First, it was Russia, USSR that time, and second time it was the United States of America. But we, shared the burden. We shared the burden. Then there is a war on terror. The after effects of war on terror in Pakistan. More than 90,000 civilians and army, both casualties were there in Pakistan. So we face the music. We face, all the consequences of the war in Afghanistan, plus these refugees. And Pakistan has requested at all the forums ever since, first it was hosted by Turkey. So many times those forums have been hosted by China, Iran. Pakistan has always said that look, we cannot, take their burden forever. Sooner or later, they have to go back in their country, or they have to leave Pakistan, because Pakistan, as I said earlier, Pakistan cannot, take their burden forever. Unfortunately, we all say that Pakistan comes at the lower ebb of the developing countries matrix. We have our own limited resources. So, unfortunately, except Pakistan, no other neighboring country. If you say Iran, if you say the Central Asian countries which share the border with Afghanistan, or India, which is not very far away from their border. So no other country in Afghanistan, neighbors, actually offered their refugees a place to live. So it was only Pakistan. So it was only Pakistan, sir. So this is the first time, as you said, you talk about the Taliban. Unfortunately, their own human rights record is not very fair. But this is the first time that we are seeing that ever since the Taliban is in power, they haven't launched any offensive against any ethnicity in Afghanistan. Because we know about Afghanistan that it is ethnically very very versatile country. Sorry. So we need to understand this thing, that the countries like Pakistan, who themselves are breathing on the loans and grants and aids of IMF or World Bank or Asian infrastructure investment banks, and Pakistan's budget is on The budgetary gap is sometimes bridged by Saudi Arabia, UAE, and the gracious friends like China, Turkey. So Pakistan can't afford to have millions of refugees forever. So Pakistan can't grant them the status of legal as a legal citizen, because it will bring a lot of other consequences. Because the drug trafficking, the Kalashnikov culture, so all of this stuff. And as I said earlier, although it's a very painful, but it's a truth that the population growth rate of the Afghan refugees was the highest among all the migrants in the world. So it means that it was further increasing the burden on the Pakistani society. So I think it was a good time to send them off. And this time the Taliban are also making a very good infrastructure development partnerships, specifically with China and with other countries in the region. And I think it's the best time to rebuild the new Afghanistan, which is a great country, which has all the resources, be it minerals, be it metals, be it rare earth metals. The deserts are there, everything is there. Whatever you need to rebuild a perfect country, I think Afghanistan has all of them. So only thing which was lacking before was the peace. So this is the first time ever since the United States of America's withdrawal. This is the first time we are seeing in the history of Afghanistan and the region that now there's a peace. So who will make this peace more sustainable? The people. They themselves guarantee the peace. And which people? Of course, the sons and daughters of the soil, which are the Afghan people. So I hope as they are going back to their own country, I hope that with the international community support, I think they will be successful. And after all, the Afghan people are the most smartest people in the world, we all know.
Dr. Kahut, I want to wrap up our conversation by asking you the last question. Let's bring China into our dialogue. Now, some reports believe that the Taliban's dream of the extension of the China-Pakistan economic corridor into Afghanistan is completely dependent on Pakistan. So in other words, again, Taliban is watching closely to see how this economic relationship, this political partnership between China and Pakistan today continue to be growing and also to generate much greater noises. So from your perspective, how much do you think that the similar relationship between China and Pakistan can take place? Meanwhile, we continue to see the stability between China and Pakistan. Your final thoughts?
So first of all, we need to understand that Pakistan can give a very perfect route to Afghanistan by land, because we have one of the finest port in the region, which is Gwadar Port. So again, rebuilt and operationalized by Chinese friends. So from all over the world, from wherever the China does a trade or any country does a trade, so the shipment can easily come to Gwadar, and from Gwadar through land route, so it can all the way go to Afghanistan. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for Afghanistan. And by the way, this CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, from the day one when the President Xi announced it, he said that we are making this corridor as a window of opportunity for the shared progress. So it is the window of opportunity for all the regional friends, be it Iran, be it India, be it Central Asian countries, be it Afghanistan, to make the best use out of it. CPEC has started to give its low-hanging fruits to Pakistan already. We are seeing their jobs, employability has increased. Pakistan is looking, a record infrastructure development projects now. Most of them are ready. So our energy shortage problem has been resolved to a lot of extent. So it was all possible due to the Chinese sponsored or Chinese technology power plants all across Pakistan. Then now the special economic zones, they are being established in Pakistan. So Afghanistan is our close neighbor. Their culture resembles a lot, with the Pakistani people. We shared so many ethos, And I think it's the best opportunity for Afghanistan to join CPAC very, very actively, so that from Gwadar until the last corner of Afghanistan, through land and through Afghanistan, that shipment can go directly to the Central Asian states. Why not? So I mean, it's this idea which was actually given initially by the Chinese intellectuals. And the old Silk Route, by the way, the old Silk Route, the hundreds of years ago, that Silk Route, I think it can again be revived, and it can bring a lot of prosperity for all the countries in the region.
Indeed, Dr. Kahut. Again, we're looking at this geopolitical change for China, for the country of Pakistan, and also for Afghanistan. Of course, on one hand, we need to be more humane towards the refugees, but on the other hand, it's more responsible to say, or it's our obligation to say, that we want to be law-abiding citizens, and no matter what we live. So again, we hope that the Pakistan government, and again, has these tangible solutions to send those refugees back to Afghanistan. But meanwhile, we'll continue to pray and hope that people in Afghanistan begin to grow and to prosper and to be successful, especially under this economic agenda and the partnership with China. Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to speak to Dr. Shoaib Kahut. Again, Dr. Kahut is a postdoc scholar at Shandong University in China, and his research interests include Belt and Road Initiative and energy economics. And he has carried out extensive research on Chinese investment across the globe. And well, Dr. Kahut, thank you so much for your time. It's always been a pleasure. And we know that you just came back from Pakistan. So we hope to have you back on the show as we continue to pay attention to the country and also all the international countries and also irrelevant topics. So thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure, Mr. Will. Thank you.